Well, hello there, Catherine Langman here. Welcome back to another episode of the Productpreneur Success podcast, or welcome if this is your first time listening to the show, then hello and welcome to you too. So my goal with this podcast is to just always be sharing as useful content as possible about strategies that we're using right now to get great results in e-commerce. And also to try and share some really inspiring stories about what other successful e-commerce brand owners and other businesses are doing right now. And so I'm recording this. My kids are finally back in school last week. I feel like I can kind of roll my sleeves back up and get stuck back into work. Not that I don't do any work during the school holidays, but I don't usually press ahead with the really big chunky new projects. So normally what I do in the school holidays is obviously keep the bare minimum stuff happening that needs to happen just to keep the wheels turning in the business. But then I also spend time reviewing metrics and results and really letting that sort of performance information rattle around in my head and just give myself a bit of time to think about things. It's really hard to have the creative ideas and come up with, next steps when you're just busy all the time, which is kind of what term time is like for me. Don't know if that's the same for you, but we are back into school term time. So for me, I treat this like my sprint. So if you're familiar with agile project management methodology, and so for me, a sprint is where it's really head down, bum up, and really getting some stuff done. So we're into this term sprint now, and hopefully I can really help all of you to make the most of this next couple of months and to take you up to the end of financial year if you're in Australia, and hopefully help you get the best possible results. And of course, also put yourselves in the best position to have an absolutely bumper fourth quarter of the year. So we definitely want to be doing the right things now to make sure that you make the most of the high season when it comes to, or the peak season in e-commerce retail later on in the calendar year. Now, part of your approach in the coming weeks and months, if you are looking at putting in a big effort to see you through to the end of financial year, it should really be looking at how profitable your marketing and your advertising is, along with everything that you do in your business, of course. It's not just to looking at those specific expenses. So I recently did an exercise called a expense audit. That's not really an official project title, but anyway, it really, it's probably, you can figure out what that is. I was going through all of the expenses that I spent money on in the year to date, and part of that was for sure about what to keep and what to cut. But actually, more than that, it was also identifying where the biggest returns were coming from in terms of, spending money on things, and also where some money was coming from but could be done better. Like how could I spend more to make more, or where the returns could be improved with a little bit of effort. And I really highly encourage you to do this exercise as well. Particularly if you do spend money on marketing and advertising related platforms, whether it's like Klaviyo or paid advertising, because the chances are you are sometimes tempted to cut these things when in fact you should be treating them like an investment with the view to try and maximize your returns as much as possible. So to that end, I really want to share a little bit of I'm going to share a few details about a recent client of ours who has a brand in the mum and baby space and was really struggling with her ads. She wasn't personally struggling with her ads. She had been working with an agency that was not doing a good job with them. But, she had already reached a multi-six-figure brand status in terms of her turnover, but her revenue growth had kind of plateaued and her ads were just not profitable. It was really costing a lot to generate the revenue that she was making. So if even just the thought of running social media ads has you feeling a little bit like Mr. Zuck is kind of opening your wallet, fleecing all of your money and then some, and then closing it without even so much as here's a customer for you, then this episode is definitely for you. So let's dive in. I'm going to share you 5 things that you can look at to help you improve the profitability of your social media advertising. And so the first thing really needs to be about really understanding your target audience. Now, I know that, lots of people say, do a customer avatar exercise, or, you've got to understand who your market is. I think, most of us do, most of you guys do, I know I do, but it doesn't mean that we necessarily always keep that front and center, or that everybody that you're working with also keeps that front and center of mind, and uses that information appropriately when it comes to, you know, your social media advertising. So I want to talk about this particular client of ours, and you know, so like I said, she's in the mum and baby space, and the previous advertiser had really failed to understand their customer avatar and really understand the reasons why they might engage with a brand. And so what we were seeing in this ad account, and I do see this a lot, not just with ads, but with emails and you know, marketing content generally for social media, is it's just a bit bland and boring. And, you know, there can be this knee-jerk reaction. I think I've spoken about it on the podcast in the past, where if you are really keen to grow more, you know, get more revenue, maybe sales have been a bit flat and you really just need to turn things around a little bit, the knee-jerk reaction is to just go straight for the buy now message. And it's not a very engaging piece of content, right? Like it has its place. We all need to understand and have a method of being able to ask for the sale that is effective. But it's, if that's the only or the majority of the content or message that you're putting out with your content and your ads, then you're just not going to be attracting many customers. If you think about, I remember someone describing your potential customers a little bit like a highway. So you'll have the fast lane, you'll have the slower lanes, and then you're going to have the sidewalk. And in the fast lane, you're going to have a few cars that are really speeding along. And, you know, if you think about that in terms of your customers, they're going to be the ones who are ready to buy right now. They already know that they need and want your product specifically, and they just are going to be, you know, the low-hanging fruit to respond to an invitation to buy. But then you've got the majority of people taking up the rest of the lanes on the highway. And, you know, so that's probably going to be like 90% of your potential audience is in the rest of the lanes that aren't super fast, but not the sidewalk. And they might already know that they have a need or a desire or a problem that needs resolving. And they might already know that they want something like what you sell, but they haven't made the decision that it's going to be your stuff. You know, they might even just be at the early stages of just realizing, oh, heck, I need a new outfit because I've got this event coming up, and the outfit I thought I was going to wear is got a hole in it, or I don't fit into it, or it's just, you know, really old now and it's not appropriate, or whatever the case may be. You know, just spitballing some ideas why somebody might realize they need to come and buy something. But, you know, they aren't yet potentially even aware that you exist, let alone have decided that your product is exactly what they want. So putting a buy now message in front of them without any other content that's going to attract or engage with them or kind of educate them or entertain them or really help them to realize that, you know, there's some congruence there in terms of desire and brand values and all the rest of it, it's not gonna attract the audience or get them to buy. It's just, you know, it's a bit scroll past ish, if that makes sense. And then you've got people on the sidewalk, they don't even know that they have a problem yet, so you know, they're probably not going to respond to anything much at all. So you know, at this point, if you have somebody running ads for you, and you probably will already have an instinct if they're not converting very well or they're costing you a lot of money, you probably already have an instinct as to whether the content of the ads is actually engaging to your audience. And if you have that instinct, you're probably spot on. So this is where you really need to be trying to understand your audience better, and you can use things like surveys. You can analyze your social media data. You can look to all of your organic content and see what kind of content is actually getting the engagement and the clicks and the orders. But, you know, also think about all of these people who aren't yet, you know, haven't yet made up their mind that your product is the thing that they want. And, you know, just think a bit earlier on. Don't go straight for the jugular and the buy now message. You've got to think a little bit earlier on about what's going to inspire them and engage with them, and, you know, really kind of connect with them before you try and ask them to buy. So then once you've really gone through that process, the second step is trying to craft those really engaging ads. You want the ad copy and the visuals. So the ad creatives are going to be the visuals are going to be the first thing that actually stops somebody from scrolling and to watch or to have a look. If it's a video or if it's an image, that's what's going to actually stop the scroll initially. And then the copy really needs to be well written. It needs to be the right kind of tone of voice. Are you a brand who has a cheeky sense of humor, or are you a brand that's a little bit more like having a chit chat with your girlfriends, or you're a little bit more educational or formal, whatever the case may be. And so really making sure that the copy and the visuals are really engaging to attract and hold the attention of your potential customers. And so referencing this particular client of ours, she had said to us that every single time the previous ad manager had written ad copy for her, she had to rewrite it. So they were boring, they weren't accurate, that was the wrong tone of voice, they weren't engaging, they weren't communicating the right sort of messages, and just overall it wasn't on brand, and it wasn't persuasive in any way, shape or form. And in terms of the visuals, they were just really, really repetitive, and again, just not overly engaging. If you know anything much about advertising yet, those of you with some experience, you know what I talk about when I talk about the top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. But when you think about a potential customer in their buyer journey, if they've never come across your brand before, versus somebody who has been, knows about you, has engaged with your brand a few times, maybe they've looked on your website, or they've engaged with your content on social media, or they've had a look at products, or subscribe to your email list, so they know a little bit about you. You can't be showing the same ads to both those different sorts of audiences. They're going to need different, they need to see different visuals, they're going to need to read different messages. And at the end of the day, if you keep showing the same sorts of ads and they're super repetitive, people are just going to stop seeing them. They're not even going to really register as on their radar as they scroll through the news feed. So then the third thing that you really need to be looking at, of course, is correctly targeting your ads to the right audience. Now, this really ought to go without saying, but it is pretty important that you show the ads to the right demographics and the right location and all of that kind of stuff. Now, have a think about whether if you're selling products in the mum and baby space, there's probably some fairly specific demographics that will be relevant, right? Whereas with this particular client, a lot of their ads were set up to show to men and women of all ages. And, sure, there may occasionally be a guy or a grandma or something like that buying this sort of a product, but not many, right? And that's going to cost a whole lot more money than it really needs to. Whereas if you were much more specific and effective with targeting your ads, to the right audience, the people who are likely to be buyers in that particular case is going to be the mums or the mums to be. And so, yes, I'm totally generalizing here, but in terms of getting the most profit out of your ads, you kind of need to target the people who are most likely to be buying from you. So really making sure that the targeting of your ads is set up correctly is going to really help you get the best returns from your ads. And the next thing that I really want to talk about, and in fact, this does kind of go hand in hand a little bit with the when I was talking about the ad creatives and really having engaging content and messaging, but being able to use social proof is really quite crucial at building trust and credibility and giving customers or potential customers the confidence to make a purchasing decision with you. So this is, especially important when you are selling to women and in particular to mums. Mums buy from other mums at the end of the day, and there's a fair amount of research that will back that up. And so in this particular case with this client of ours, they didn't have any of that, and in fact, they they hardly had any humans in the ads at all. You know, the products are really beautiful and really great quality, and customers absolutely love them. So there was nothing wrong with any of that, but it just actually wasn't showing in the ads themselves. Whereas, you know, brands where you can see, you know, that kind of user generated content where, you know, you've got the customers, you know, maybe doing an unboxing video or a product demonstration video, or really kind of talking through what they love about, you know, the products and all of that kind of stuff. That is pretty compelling. Maybe not at, you know, every stage of the ad funnel, but certainly at the point where it's close to making a purchase decision, that's going to be pretty compelling. So, you know, you really want to make sure that you are, you know, you've got a little bit of a system or a habit around collecting that kind of content from your customers and then featuring it in your marketing. Don't just use it in your ads. Super effective in ads, but you can use it on your blogs, you can use it on your organic content. You could, you know, you can definitely get a fair bit of mileage from that sort of content. So then the fifth thing that I want to really talk about here is following the traffic. Now, so what happens when customers click on your ad and they go to your website? You know, where are they dropping off once they get to the website? Because a lot of the time, when ads just aren't converting profitably, there is a big drop off at some point, and it could be immediately when somebody gets to the website if there's no kind of congruence between the ad and the website when they get there. You know, you don't ever want to be in a situation where a potential customer is clicking from an ad or some other piece of marketing content and getting to your website and getting a bit confused because it doesn't look like the same brand. So that can be a problem. But also what can often happen, and what I've seen a little bit recently with, you know, auditing some ad accounts where the ads were converting but just not very profitably, is that the traffic was actually dropping off the product pages. And so, you know, I just wanted to take a moment here in this episode and just really emphasize how important it is to have a great product page. You know, we cannot you know, generally we can't just leave a product page or a landing page up to the bare minimum included in your website theme. It's often not going to be enough. There are some brands that do fantastic landing pages, fantastic product pages. I recorded a whole podcast episode all about the essential elements of a product page. So without repeating myself here and now, I just want to recommend that you go back and listen to that one. It's episode 142. So you'll find that one at catherinelangman.com/episode 142. And I'll make sure that we link to that from this episode show notes as well. Unfortunately, a lot of other ad agencies or advertisers, as well as, you know, business owners who are trying to work on their own ads, they just don't seem to realize that this is part of the deal. You know, part of really being able to optimize your ads for the best results. And it's not just helping your ads either. It's going to help your emails. It's going to help all of the marketing that you do, is to really keep track of how well the website landing pages perform. You know, and consider the importance of this in relation to the results that you might be getting from any of your marketing or advertising. Because when you think about it, you know, your website pages and the website checkout, they're kind of the equivalent of the product merchandising and the cashier counter in a retail store. You know, if it doesn't inspire anyone to add to cart, then, you know, you just won't be taking anyone's money. And also, it's not just trying to inspire people to add to cart, it's also giving them all of the relevant information that they might need before they're going to do, you know, take that next step of adding to cart. I'll give you a clear example that I literally just experienced right before jumping on to record this podcast. This is not from the client that I've been talking about. I was just having a bit of a lunch break before sitting down to record this episode, and my poor puppy dog, he's got a big cone on his head because he's just had his little operation, desexing operation last week. But he's also just grown really, really big. And so he needs a new leash. Now, we had the harness type leash. It's supposed to be some kind of a no pull thing. It's not really working yet. Anyway, he needs a bigger one. And so the good the measure gods, they obviously heard me thinking, because I was scrolling on Instagram, and whilst I was eating my lunch, and there's this ad popped up for, I'm not even going to be able to tell you the name of the brand, but it's like, dog accessory things, and they were advertising this no pull harness. But I go to the website and that looks good, but then they have this other thing that's very, very similar, and they, in their product descriptions, they say they're both for the same thing, for training dogs to walk on a leash without pulling. And I'm like, well, they're quite different. How do I pick? And there's no information there to help me to pick. So that's a little bit of a fail. I 100% would have added to cart and purchased had that information been there to help me make that correct decision, but it wasn't. So I've left the website. So anyway, hopefully that's a little bit of food for thought. Just to summarize things for you today, here are the main takeaways that I really want you to take from today. First of all, do a bit of an audit of your expenses. So you may find that there are some that you can cut, but mostly I want you to work out which line items are actually making you money, and figure out if you can amplify that or improve that ROI. I will do an episode a little bit like this, but more about email. Although, of course, last week I did talk on the podcast about how you can increase the ROI of your Klaviyo account. So, there's generally going to always be ways that we can make even more money from the efforts that we're putting in. But certainly, working out which expenses and line items there are that are making you money, but that you could amplify if maybe were able to improve or optimize the way that you're using that tool. If your social media ads are more expensive than they could be in terms of the revenue generated, then review the following 5 areas: understanding your ideal customer, creating engaging visuals and copy for your ads, reviewing the targeting and the setup, making sure that you are using that social proof, and then, of course, following the traffic through the checkout, and really figure out where the drop-off points are, and how you might be able to reduce that drop-off, because that will 100% increase your conversion rate, and that's, of course, going to help you make more money off the ad spend. Now, I have shared an example of the actual ad results, the comparison results. So the client who I've been talking about, I am keeping them anonymous, because not everybody wants to be spoken about publicly about these things. But you will be able to see actual screenshot of the week-on-week comparison figures of their ads, just to illustrate the impact that you can have on your ads by following these kinds of steps. To analyze and then optimize and improve. So if you want to see those, they're on the show notes page for this episode. So just head to catherinelangman.com/episode-173, and you can take a look at the screenshots of the week-on-week comparison ad results. What you'll see is within 1 week of our new ad strategy going live, we actually increased revenue, top line revenue, by 134%, and also a 56% increase on return in investment. So the net result of all of that is a really noticeable increase in profitable growth. And we still have, of course, plenty of opportunity to tap into, because it's still fairly early days with this client. So if you like the sounds of all of that, if you want a little bit of help to either learn how to do this or to implement it in your business, then give me a shout. There's always 3 choices with any new strategy. You can keep doing the same as you're doing now. You can learn how to implement something new yourself, or you can get some help. So I can help with 2 of those. If you want some help with learning, we've got our coaching program, and of course we have our agency services. So if you just want to explore what that might look like, just feel free to book in a free strategy session with us. So if you want to do that, you can head over to productpreneurmarketing.com/let's-talk, and you can book that free strategy session anytime that you like. I'll make sure that link is also in the show notes episode for today's episode as well. So that's it for today. Really hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope you have a fabulous rest of the day and rest of the week, and I will be back with you on the show again next week. Bye for now.